Good Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. We will get to some Browns talk with Browns beat reporters Mary Kay Cabot and Fred Greetham in just a few seconds. We begin with the Guardians. Guardians let a golden opportunity slip away in the ALDS with the Tigers in Game 2 yesterday as scoreless in the ninth inning. Emmanuel Clase on Kerry Carpenter. The third consecutive slider. That one catches too much of the plate and hangs a little, and Carpenter drops it into the right field seats. A three-run blast that was the only scoring of the game. Clase just missed his spot. Carpenter made him pay. The series tied up at a game apiece now as it heads to Detroit for Game 3, and there's one last look at it. Too much of the plate to a good hitter. Stephen Vogt, Guardians manager, talked about that game, Game 2, as well as the pitch sequence for Emmanuel Clase.
You can look at that however you'd like, and I like I said, I don't pay attention to our sequencing in game. That's not my area. What we do is we talk about it and what can we learn from it. I don't think there's any cardinal rule. I think it's, what's true is that Carpenter got a slider close to him that he hit out for a homer. How we got there or what we did or whether or not that was the right pitch, that's not really a question that we need to ask. It's more of what can we learn from what happened and how can we get better. At the end of the day, a really good hitter hit a good pitch for a homer. You replay everything, every decision that you made, and I wouldn't change a thing about the way the game went yesterday. We just didn't win. And I think when you process each loss, each win, you can nitpick, you can look at little things, you can do this, but at the end of the day, that was a great Major League Baseball game that was played yesterday, and they just happened to get the big hit, and we didn't. And after processing, that's just what it was. And, that game could have gone in any direction at any time, and they got the big hit.
So the series goes to Detroit, Game 3 tomorrow. Alex Cobb will get the start. And Cobb was really the only pitcher the Guardians traded for at the trade deadline. They needed some. They signed Matthew Boyd, but they went out and they traded for Alex Cobb at the deadline. And Cobb wasn't a guy that really wanted to get traded. He was on the injured list and caught by surprise by the trade a little bit.
There's so many variables that can happen that it's just almost easier with a family to not get traded. And going into the deadline, I did not want to get traded. I was coming back from injury. I was in a place that I was going to be comfortable. I could, get my feet wet again. But when I got the call and things started looking like I might be going to Cleveland, obviously the first thing I think about is Vogt and Albie and having an opportunity to, we all came up together in the minor leagues to have that full circle moment and be able to go not only have a chance to make it back to the postseason, but to do it with those guys. You can't help but just, have all these thoughts going on in your mind and just get really excited. And so the moment that happened, my wife and I just were super excited, and knowing that we're going to a place. I didn't know anybody on the team, really. I mean, I knew Boyd, not too many other players, but to know those two was easy to walk into the clubhouse. And then by day 2, you're best friends with everybody in this locker room. It's just the chemistry on this team is just fantastic. It's a bunch of young guys that came up together and just have more energy than any team I've ever been on, and have more fun than just about any team I've been on as well.
So as Cobb alluded to, teammates with manager Stephen Vogt, that's how old he is, in his mid to late 30s. Cobb will be making his first postseason appearance since he beat the then Indians in 2012 in a wild card playoff game.
I think there's probably nobody in this playoffs that appreciate it more than I do. After being away from being in this for so long, and then just it's hard to even think about all the things that had to happen for me to get back to it, and then with all the injuries and everything, and then to this year of getting traded while on the IL, and then to get here and get back on the IL and not get an opportunity to get back to the regular season, and then to have an organization and a coaching staff to have the trust in me to still think that I'm able to perform to my abilities, to put me on the roster. So I'm extremely thankful for the opportunity.
And it will be just the fourth start for for Alex Cobb for the Guardians this year, as hard as that is to believe. A couple of them, he's been dominant. He took a perfect game through 6 in one of his starts. But again, it's just his fourth start. Every time he gets on a roll, there seems to be a setback.
Very weird. I think you have to really take that into consideration, and knowing that you have to do everything you can leading up to that game to try to stay as sharp as you can. Since I've been hurt the second time, I've nonstop trying to take visual reps in my mind of creating the pitch shapes that I want to see, and to a point where you wish you could turn it off at sometimes, and it just keeps replaying in your mind. So I'm always doing that, and I think that's a question I'll answer better after the game. But right now, I feel confident, and I think having the type of team we have is helps you have a little bit more confidence. We've got best defense in baseball, best bullpen in baseball. As a starting pitcher, you can go out there and go full out, as aggressive as you can and as you want to be, as a starting pitcher, knowing that you have those two backing you up.
So Cobb missed the end of the regular season last couple of weeks with just kind of nagging injuries, a fingernail that ripped off and a blister on his finger. Now, people sit there and say, oh, it's not. He throws his changeup and his breaking pitch with that fingernail, and that finger they had the blister on dug into the baseball. So he's trying to just get those nagging injuries behind him.
These last two with the nail and the blister have been a little bit different, just because there's nothing to rehab. You just kind of have to sit there and wait. So then it just becomes more of a mental game of trying to stay sharp. But having the letdown of getting back, I'd say this last one was really tough, because I felt like, all right, I had a long layoff. I came back, I was sharp, and then now I'm ready to go on this run before the postseason, and it didn't work out again. So that was challenging, but I still feel like it'll all be worth it.
And again, veteran that has pretty good stuff, loves to battle. So Alex Cobb gets the start in Game 3 for the Guardians in Detroit. Tigers going with bullpen game. They will name their opener sometime tomorrow. They'll make it official. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we turn our attention to the Browns with Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, Mary Kay Cabot. Stay with us.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We continue on Sports4CLE, and we turn our attention to the Cleveland Browns. Things not going well with the start of the season for the Browns. Former NFL executive, player personnel guy, former Browns player as well, Louis Riddick, was asked on the Dan Patrick Show what he would do if he was in the Browns front office with Deshaun Watson.
You mean like, what am I doing if I didn't have to answer to the owner?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm putting them on the bench, because I'm sure the coach is probably in my office going, When can I put him on the bench because he doesn't give us the best chance to win? When can I make a change here because he's not giving us the best chance to win? When can I make a change here because I can't run the offense I want to run because he's not the guy to run the offense I want to run? So I'm sure I would be having that conversation going, okay, look, we understand what you're saying. And if I had the autonomy to make that decision, I would understand and I would support the coach. But they are in a situation where this is the single, like, and this isn't hyperbole either. This is the single worst contract and situation. Maybe I mean, I'd have to really sit here and think about it, a little bit more, but I can't think of a single worse contract situation in the history of sports.
Let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mary Kay, the reason I play that, I know you were asked and have written, is Kevin Stefanski being forced to play Deshaun Watson, from what you know and from what you're hearing?
No, that's not the way that this team operates. They collaborate on decisions, certainly. And I'm sure that Kevin had a long talk yesterday with Andrew Berry. I'm sure that Jimmy Haslam has gotten involved just in the discussions because he likes to be a part of things. But just in terms of him being forced to do anything, that's not how this works. It's definitely not how this works. I think that Kevin recognizes, I know he recognizes, that this is a systemic offensive problem for the Cleveland Browns right now, that it's not all Deshaun's problem. If, people all over the country right now think they know exactly what's going on with the Cleveland Browns, and they really don't. I mean, that's just really the truth of the matter. They don't know what's going on with the offensive line. They don't know what's going on with the receivers. They don't know what's going on with the tight ends. All they see is isolated quarterback plays, and they don't know of the extenuating circumstances right now. It's a systemic team-wide problem that's going on. It's not just Deshaun. He is a symptom of kind of a mess of a team right now.
Yeah.
Certainly a mess of an offense.
Yeah, are they asking the offensive line to do some different things than they have in the past? Because it's I know they're banged up. It's basically a lot of the same guys. Are they trying to get them to do different blocking schemes that kind of require different skill sets?
Well, they do miss Bill Callahan, and they have changed things up, and things definitely are different. But if you really look at it, they've got three guys coming off of knee surgeries, one of whom hasn't been able to play yet in Jack Conklin. DeJuan Jones is not himself yet this season. Jed Wills has only played parts of two games, or started one full game and made it through, and then started another game and left that game. So he's missed most of the season. David Njoku has missed most of the season. Amari Cooper has gotten off to a slow start. Admittedly, he talks about the fact that he's gotten off to a slow start. So it's a little bit of everything. And I really do believe that Deshaun is an easy target for a lot of reasons. People don't like him. They just do not like Deshaun Watson. So they want to see him fail. Many, many people want to see him fail. And I think there's some of that going on right now. People can't wait for him to fail so that they can say the Browns never should have done this. This was the worst contract. Was the worst decision ever. But I do think that in some respects you need to separate out the football from the off the field stuff. And if you just look at it down for down, I don't think he's coming off of his best game. But the week before that, he played really well against the Raiders. He played actually really very well against the Raiders. And I don't think this whole situation going on with the Cleveland Browns right now is a Deshaun Watson problem.
The other thing that you constantly hear is, oh, they should go back to what they were doing last year. I can't imagine that it's as simple as, okay, you know what, let's go get that playbook from my office and bring it. They're doing completely different things, especially on relative to under center and blocking, and it's not as simple as, hey, let's go and do what we did last year.
No, and it's just not working right now. And it's not working in part because they're getting pressure and they're getting blitzed so much that they just can't run their new offense. They can't run their new scheme. And I know a lot of people are sending me clips of Deshaun Watson missing the open man and things like that. It's still not that simple. These guys are running choice routes where there are decisions that have to be made that the quarterback and the receiver have to be on the same page about. There's just a lot going on. The whole new offense hasn't come together yet. And certainly Deshaun does not look good right now. But nobody looks good right now, and it's really hard to run your scheme when you're under siege.
And it's not there's no way they can go back and run what they were running last year. That offense has been kind of torn down.
Right. But you know what they have to do is they do have to go into the playbook and they have to find some things that they can do well, and they have to change up their blocking schemes. They might want to bring in an outside consultant. I keep kidding around that I've got Bob Wiley texting me all the time saying he can come here and fix this. So why not? Why not give Bob Wiley a call and see if there is something he can't do to help what's going on this offensive line and with these blocking schemes right now, because it's not good. I think a lot of it has to do with the injuries. Let's see what happens when Jed's back a little stronger, maybe when Jack Conklin's back, when Wyatt Teller's back. That certainly hasn't helped matters to have Zach Zinter in there right now when he's not really ready to go against Christian Wilkins and Deron Payne and Josh Allen. I mean, that's kind of a tall order for a rookie guard. So there's a lot more going on than meets the eye.
How do you, and one of the things I think Kevin Stefanski would admit, they have to find a way to run the football a little bit more effectively. How do you do that? What do you look at? I mean, big personnel worked against Jacksonville, and you and I have talked about it. You said that's not like a cure-all for everything.
Well, I don't know what the answers are myself, but I will say that when I watched the Kansas City game last night, I saw that Andy Reid went to some 4 tight end formations. You do whatever you have to do to move the chains and to score some points. So they've got to figure some things out. I don't know what the answers are myself right at the moment. I don't know why they can't run the ball. Maybe it's because of the offensive line. And if you have to get yourself some different offensive linemen, then do something like that. Maybe Zach Zinter's not ready to be in there. I know he's hustling and he's trying really hard, but maybe that's an issue. Maybe Dewan needs to sit down a little bit and see if Jack Conklin's not ready to get in there. I don't really know myself exactly what they can or should be doing, but I just don't think it's completely a Deshaun Watson problem and as easy as saying, oh, if you just bench Deshaun, everything's going to be fine. Do people really believe that if you just put Jameis Winston in there, everything's going to just snap into focus and be fine? I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, and if the answers were easy, the offensive staff would have already made the adjustments.
Absolutely. I mean, but they do need to go back to the drawing board. They need to go back into the film room and they need to figure out what are some things that they can do well. And if they need to bring in some outside help, some outside consultants to take a look at their film and figure out what's going on, then so be it. Because what they're doing right now is absolutely not working. And they've got to find some things that work. And I don't know what those things are. Maybe they need to go out and I don't know if they need to find another running back, if they should try to get another receiver. I really can't answer that, but certainly they have to find some things in that playbook that they can execute.
All right, as you can imagine, plenty of voicemails. We're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Do you think Stefanski's lost this locker room? If you're a player and you keep throwing this trash out there every week offensively and you don't do anything to change it, what do you think the other players are going to do? You talk about not yelling at them. These guys are high-priced players. Everything's great when you're winning. Now that we're losing, let's see what our general manager and our two-time coach of the year does to keep these guys together. Right now, they couldn't keep together a pack of elephants. It's that bad. And unless we do something soon, we're going to be in trouble. And unless we don't keep these guys till next year, we're going to be in hell for who knows how long. And I'd like to hear your opinion if you think we've lost the locker room or not.
That's our Rochester contingent who is quite vocal on Sports4CLE. I don't think he's lost the locker room. I just haven't seen evidence of that. You would have a better handle on that than me.
No, I don't think he's lost the locker room, but I advocated yesterday that maybe they should change it up a little bit and see if Ken Dorsey should call the plays. I think they need to make some kind of a change. And if you're sticking with your quarterback, I feel like you need to do something. If this offense more closely resembles Ken Dorsey's philosophy than it does Kevin Stefanski's philosophy, maybe it is time to see if Ken can get a little bit more success with it than Kevin has been able to. Now, I advocated before the season that Kevin retain play calling duties because he's the reigning NFL Coach of the Year. I think he's good at calling plays. I think he's got a bright offensive mind. But I think a fresh approach is in order right now. And I don't think it can hurt to just try something new to see if you can shake it up a bit.
Yeah, no, I would agree that you have to do something. And, you know, we've said we don't think, you don't think Watson switching out the quarterback. Yeah, again, play caller, that a different voice and a different way of doing things, different sequence might help.
It might. Again, maybe it won't, but I think it's easier to change out the play caller than it is the quarterback. If you bench your $230 million quarterback, then I think you can be in trouble if it doesn't work out for you in 3 or 4 weeks and you have to go back to him. And by then, everything could be lost. Right now, all is not lost. A lot is lost, but not everything. They haven't played their division games yet. They haven't played their conference games yet. The Bengals are 1-4. What if Lamar Jackson has to miss 4 or 5 games and the Ravens come back to the pack? The Browns could end up still being in this. You have to hover around 500 to the extent that you can. You have to try to stay in it as best you possibly can, and then see if you can't make a run down the stretch when you have things figured out. They don't have things figured out right now. Maybe they'll get it together.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I can step aside, take a quick time out. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason when we return. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I know each consecutive loss now feels somehow more painful than the last. I believe this was the worst offensive performance of the year. And watching the immediate post-game interview with Kevin Stefanski, he said, I need to coach better. With him saying that, I don't know how you go about fixing this Browns offense specifically, but all options need to be on the table. And if Kevin is outwardly identifying that they're being outcoached, then why can't Ken Dorsey or any potential offensive coordinator not call offensive plays? This loss was a complete embarrassment and a complete failure offensively.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, I guess the concerning part when you look at it, they were did so well with the scripted plays. Even the scripted plays, the first drive was kind of short-circuited.
Yeah, because, when you have issues on those opening downs, and they are having problems on those early downs, then you're just not going to be served well. That's all there is to it. And they are only averaging 4.0 yards on their early downs. And throughout most of the game, they couldn't get anything done on first and second down, and therefore you can't get anything done on third down. I know that Deshaun is having an issue with the play selection, maybe not the play calling, but the play selection. He's not liking what's happening, and you can tell just by what he said. I'm not saying that I know this for a fact. All you have to do is read his quotes from post-game and him saying, we have to sit down with the coaches. We have to figure out what we're good at. We're not finding ways to utilize our playmakers. I mean, maybe instead of trying to run on first and second down and getting a yard or 2 yards, maybe you have to do some more pre-snap motion. They're last in the NFL in that. Maybe you do some different things with the shorter passing game, with some jet sweeps. I don't know exactly what they can do, but right now they're getting blitzed, stunted, and gamed right out of the game.
All right. This is another thing that's kind of concerning for the offense. This is from Mike Clay. Does a lot of the analytics and type stuff. Absurd 45% of passes directed at Amari Cooper have qualified as off target this season. Haven't seen off target that rate that high for a player with 40-plus targets since at least prior to 2011. Mary Kay, some of that might very well be the choice routes and those kind of things. When you're not on the same page with choice routes, it's not pretty.
Right. And for whatever reason, Amari Cooper and Deshaun Watson have really not been on the same page a lot of times this season, and especially in the first 2 games of this season. So I don't know. Once again, can you put that all on Deshaun? I don't think so. I think that that stat is probably a little bit inflated and skewed against Deshaun. I think there are some situations where maybe Amari wasn't where he was supposed to be. I don't necessarily know that that he is all 100% completely locked in yet. He hasn't really seemed like himself in every single game this year. He's admitted to that. So I don't know if you can just look at that stat just and isolate it out like that and say, okay, Deshaun's just not throwing the ball on target to Amari Cooper. I just think it's more complicated than that.
Absolutely. If it was that simple, it would be easy to correct. What do you think of the offensive line play against the Commanders? I thought it took a step kind of forward, I guess. It wasn't like there were as many jailbreaks and 6 guys in Deshaun's face, but the run blocking concerns me.
Yeah, the run blocking hasn't been there. If the run blocking were there, then you would not be having those issues that you are having on 1st and 2nd down and getting yourself into 3rd and long, which they are more than any other team. And then you can see that, Zach Zinter, he's doing the best he can, but on the inside there, when you're having to deal with Daron Payne and Josh Allen, that's a really, really tough gig. That's a tall order for a rookie. So there are still some issues going on. DeJuan Jones, as I've mentioned, is not himself yet, still working his way back from his knee surgery. And then, I really do think it hurts to be without Wyatt Teller. And now Ethan Posick has a knee injury. So I think the protection problems have been a big, big issue this season.
Browns did make some roster moves, letting go of a couple of players today. And here, when we take a look at them, Javion Cohn, one of them, a guard. They also let go of Royce Freeman and a tight end. Are there some injured players who might be coming back?
Hopefully for them, Jack Conklin will come back because they need him. And also hopefully for them, David Njoku's knee injury isn't too serious and he can play this weekend, and Ethan Posick can play this weekend because they need those guys. They're not going to get better if they continue to get more injuries and they lose guys. They need guys coming back into the lineup, not going out of the lineup. So if they have David, if they have Jed, if they have Jack, if they have Ethan, I think they should be okay.
Any chance that this is the week we see Nick Chubb, or is it more likely, next week or the week after?
It's possible that they could see Nick Chubb this week. Maybe Nick will feel a tremendous burden or responsibility to come back and try to help this week. Maybe he'll think that he can be the lift that the team needs, and maybe he's right about that. So we'll have to see about that. But I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back this week. It seems to me that next week would seem to be more likely at home and just blowing through that tunnel and getting the crowd all fired up. But we'll have to see how it goes over the next couple days.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. When we return, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, be right back. Thanks.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
So, hey, Dave, this is Danielle. I was just wondering about the Browns. What the heck is going on with the Brownies? Are they just taking the season or what? It looks like Watson just walked off the field doing whatever he wants. He's having a tantrum. They're not on the same page. They supposedly brought Dorsey in to fix all this. That has been a complete disaster as well. What do you think is going on with the team? Because at this point, the season's over, and we just need to tank, obviously, if they're going to tank. So what are your thoughts, Dave? Because this is a disaster. All right, go Brownies. Woof, woof.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, there's no possible way that they're tanking. They're trying to figure out a new offense, and it's not working. That's as simple as I can put it.
Well, that's true. And again, when you add it all up, think about the fact that you've got a quarterback coming off of shoulder surgery. You've got injuries across the offensive line. You've got Amari not being himself. You've got David Njoku not being out there. You've got a brand new offense, a new scheme that hadn't come together yet. I watched all those guys play together, practice together one time in training camp. That's certainly not enough. And it's still their preseason. They're out there working out their kinks in the middle of football games and trying to figure out who they are and what they are. So hopefully for them, they will get it together before they've lost too many games to make the playoffs. Right now, they're not completely out of it yet. The picture will look completely different if they can win a couple of football games. If they can go out and win 2 games, and maybe the Bengals still continue to struggle a little bit, maybe the Ravens lose another game, then you're starting to look a little bit better and things don't seem as bleak. So let's see how it goes over the next month.
Yeah, and they're putting an awful lot of pressure on themselves in the AFC North by falling behind everybody. That's, they're even with the Bengals are a couple games behind the Ravens and the Steelers, and they play them twice. Going 6-0 in the division, that's a tall task, but that might be what they're looking at if they fall too much further behind. This is kind of interesting, too, in PFF, why your team lost in Week 5. Browns, they say a QB change is probably due in Cleveland, but Watson was still pressured 47.4% of his dropbacks. That means almost every other time he drops back, he's feeling pressure. You're not going to be able to win any NFL games when you're that much under duress as a quarterback. You're just not.
No, you're not. And they have to figure out a way to beat it. They've got to figure it out. And again, if you have to do something completely unorthodox, go jumbo again, whatever you need to do, there's got to be a way to have a challenged offensive line, challenged protection, and still move the football. It's incumbent upon them to find a way to do it, and they just have to dig deep and figure it out. I don't know how it's going to happen, but that statistic shows you that the key for them is to be able to beat the pressure and beat the blitz. Other teams do it. The Browns have to find their way.
Yeah, and they're constantly in 3rd and long. That's the other thing. Their 3rd down conversions are the worst. So you got to, in order to stay on the field offensively, you have to convert 3rd downs. ESPN Power Rankings after Week 5, they have the Browns ranked 30th, which normally I'd argue with that at 1-4 in the way the offense has been. I can't. The fantasy surprise is Amari Cooper, and I think everybody's surprised that Amari Cooper has struggled along with Deshaun Watson as much as he has.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Amari will continue to get it together as the weeks go by. We really don't know what's going on there. Is he still affected by the fact that he was mentioned in trade talks with the 49ers? Is something like that going on? They have to figure that out. And if he is, then they have to help him work through that somehow. And then other guys have got to make sure that they're available. And when a play is there to be made, they have to make the play, right? I mean, Jerry Jeudy was thrown a pass in the end zone, and he had it in his hands, and he dropped it. And again, in Vegas, Amari Cooper dropped another crucial pass that was picked off, and the Raiders turned it into a touchdown. So these are the kinds of things that can't be happening if they want to get this turned around. Everybody's got to stop the mental errors, stop the mistakes, and do a little bit more to try to turn this around.
So one of the frustrating things, Browns just aren't scoring. So offenses that have scored 20 points this season, rebuilding Patriots and Panthers, the rookie quarterback in Denver, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, with a banged-up offensive line in Chicago. Scoring 20 points, wildly low bar. Browns haven't been able to do it offensively. And, the defense has scored some points, but, again, what's happening is every time something goes forward, you're getting a holding penalty, a dropped pass. Those are things that kill drives, and those are symptoms of bad football.
Yes. I mean, they lead the league in drop passes, okay? So that's not going to help you when it comes time to convert a third down or to score a touchdown. We've already seen that Amari Cooper dropped a couple of touchdown passes just flat out. And then in the Raiders game, he is the one that admitted he ran the wrong route on what should have been a touchdown pass there on 4th and 3 from the 9. He admits that. So if you start to make some of these plays, it changes the numbers. Deshaun Watson doesn't have the worst QBR and doesn't have the number whatever 27, 20, the 28th rating if some of these plays are made. If you're hitting a guy in the hands with the football and he's not making the play, then it still goes in your numbers. It still goes in your interceptions, but you have to analyze it for what it really is. And his numbers would look a lot different if Amari had gotten off to a stronger start this season.
All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, guys. Just wondering about some of this talk about getting rid of Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry. Under no circumstances should the Browns even be thinking about getting rid of Kevin Stefanski or Andrew Berry, even after whatever we're going to do with Deshaun Watson. Those two have never had the chance to draft the quarterback they want and develop him. They have always inherited quarterbacks or having to trade for one, and we all know that Jimmy Haslam was behind the trade. That is a good coach and a good GM, and they deserve their chance to stay here. That's the problem. We have never really had stability, and we have with those two. That's just my thought. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Eric, again, there's all the theories that Jimmy Haslam wanted Deshaun Watson. I don't know about that. I do know that I think Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are good at what they do. The Deshaun Watson trade doesn't look great right now, but you can't repeatedly change head coaches and GMs, or you end up in the 30-year cycle we were in from 99 until Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry came here.
Deshaun Watson would not be here if Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski did not want him here. I mean, they went down there and talked Deshaun Watson into wanting to come here, and they sold it hard. There's no way that he would be here right now if they didn't want him. Now, Jimmy, of course, signed off on the money, and he probably had a lot to do with the $230 million fully guaranteed, but this was not his idea and his mandate for them to trade for Deshaun Watson, and that's just an erroneous perception that is being promulgated out there.
Yeah, and again, I kind of doubt it, but we'll see. Let's switch sides of the ball real quickly before I let you go. The run defense has been concerning the last couple of weeks. You got Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts coming in, and mobile quarterbacks have been a problem. Is the run defense a reasonably easy fix, or are there underlying things with that as well? Because it's got to get better, or you're going to see a heavy dose of teams running the ball right at the Browns.
Yeah, it's not that simple. I mean, there are guys that just aren't tackling well this year. Some guys aren't covering well this year. You look at a Martin Emerson Jr., he's not having the kind of season I think anyone expected him to have. I think everyone believed that he would step up into that Pro Bowl type of level this year, and we haven't seen that from him yet. We've seen tackling issues kind of across the board, and I really don't know what's going on with that, but these guys each have to dig deep and find their inner tackler. They have to figure out the want to and the desire to get out there and tackle. It would help to have Jordan Hicks back. He's one of their best tacklers, and he's a good leader on the field. But it's not going well in that regard, and I don't think it's getting enough attention because it's very easy to focus just on Deshaun Watson.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, Mary Kay.
Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot. Make sure you check her out. Always best Browns coverage, cleveland.com, as well as the pages of the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Former NFL defensive coordinator Greg Williams from the Come Get Some podcast with his thoughts on what he would do with the Browns quarterback situation.
Now is that in order to capture the locker room, to capture the team, to keep the franchise, to keep everything rolling, it's time to make a change. And I'd be making a change. I would have already done it earlier, but I would have been making a change. And it's time for Jameis to get up and get in.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not to put the blame all on one person, right? This is the blame is passed around here and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is, and we talked about this, is it's Einstein's definition of insanity right here. And we saw it and everybody saw it during the 1-31 time. This team is way more talented. The roster is way more talented and ready to win now. But you can't do Einstein's definition of insanity.
Let's welcome in Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Fred, I've said from the beginning, if you move from Deshaun Watson to Jameis Winston, you cannot go back to Deshaun Watson. So I don't know that I'd do that. I'm getting closer to listening to that. Just your thoughts on it.
Oh, I mean, everybody's searching for answers. In fact, the head coach, you can tell, and we talk to him every Monday or after games or Wednesday. You're hearing the lines that you heard even when they struggled, but there was a difference there. You had an injured quarterback and things like that. And so, I mean, it's frustrating all the way around. I mean, I never saw this poor of play, all the way around. I mean, it just seems to be a snowball effect. The blocking's been not good. The running game has not been good. And so it's carried over into the passing game. They're averaging like 15 points a game, which is what less than what they were doing when they were 0-16 or 1-15. I mean, I can't explain this. I said it, you saw some baby steps doing a little better, but they just haven't been able to score points, and that's the bottom line. So, again, I would just simplify as much as you can. I don't know if changing the quarterback's the answer. I don't think that's going to happen. And first of all, they're going to pay the money whether he plays or not. And Kevin Stefanski understands the direness of the situation, and he's got to feel first of all, he's slow to make changes. I mean, we saw that when Baker Mayfield was clearly injured. He brought in a hand-picked backup in Case Keenum. They paid him $7 million, and Case Keenum had won and done well with Stefanski, had the best year of his career, and yet when you can clearly see Mayfield was struggling, he did not make the change to Keenum, except that one game where Mayfield couldn't get back for the Thursday night game. So, he's just slow to make changes, and I think they're gonna ride this thing out for I don't know how many more weeks, but because you're gonna pay the salary, and if they make the change, and you want to see Thompson Robinson or you want to see Winston, you're pretty much cashing in the season.
Are you? What about giving up play calling? If you were Kevin, again, I kind of agree with you. You got to try something. Do you try letting Dorsey call the plays? Does that make a difference?
I don't know if it'll make that much of a difference. They're all on the same page. They're all talking, and then Stefanski, is the one that talks into the headset. But, at this point, it doesn't hurt. I mean, Dorsey knows a little more maybe what he's trying to accomplish, and maybe he sees something different than Stefanski does. we can look at a lot of things. The offensive line change with the coaches. Bill Callahan, obviously, was one of the better offensive line coaches in the game. But when Nick Chubb went down last year, they went from a top five rushing team to, more of the middle of the pack. And so is it the players, in the running game, or is it the blocking, in the passing game? Clearly Watson's on pace to get sacked more times than any Browns quarterback in history. And that goes back to the expansion years. And so you look at it and you're trying to, scratch your head on what's the thing, in the passing game. When Watson led the NFL in passing yardage in 2020, that team was 4-12. And I think that was the year he also got sacked 62 times. So you would think, even in those situations, they're probably behind, he's passing a lot, that he would put up good numbers. He's not even putting up good numbers. So, it's clearly so many variables, it's hard to even know. I mean, if I just think simplifying things a little bit, find out what you can do. But, I had asked the question, why can't you go back and do some of the things you did in the first 4 years? I mean, just last year, not counting Joe Flacco, but before Joe Flacco, even when Deshaun Watson, in the 5 games he played, the lowest number of points they scored was 22 points. They scored, in the 20s and 30s in all the 5 of the games. And that was with the same cast of characters. I mean, you didn't have Nick Chubb for other than the last 3 quarters of the Steeler game, and they scored 22. That was the lowest. But you didn't have him in those other games, the Baltimore game and so forth. So why can't you just, even if you do a hybrid and bring some of those concepts back, I just can't believe that it's too far gone to change things. Because, think of last year with Joe Flacco. He basically comes off the couch. He hadn't played. They had to throw him in because of injuries. And so they weren't running their whole offense. They put together a short version of what they could do with Joe Flacco, and it was working. So why can't you adapt something here that would at least get something going on offense?
So this is interesting as well. CBS Sports, it's a wild stat from week 5. Deshaun Watson is having a down year. Browns quarterback, no 5 straight games where he's thrown the ball 25 times or more with less than 200 yards in each game. Tied with Donovan McNabb in 2003 for the longest streak to start a season in the past 75 years. Again, it shows you how rough the start has been for Deshaun Watson throwing the football.
Well, what I said on your show many times in the offseason is that the Browns didn't need Deshaun Watson to be an elite quarterback to get to the playoffs. They could just get average play, and I still think that. He had 2 chances. He didn't have help from some of his teammates, but chances for last-minute drives against the Giants and the Raiders. And it clearly hasn't all been his fault, but he has been part of the problem as well. And, if they could just, you saw some steps in the Raider game. You thought he was starting to put things together. I can't pinpoint, what's going on, because I don't know how a guy who looked like a Jaden Daniels or C.J. Stroud when he came into the league, how he can't. He was known for being accurate. When the Browns traded for him, he was the all-time most accurate quarterback with like 1,500 passes. It was like 71%. And even if that's all he did, take away running or anything, just be accurate, I think that would go a long way. So I don't know. I defer to the experts that they get paid a lot of money to make these decisions and to figure out what's the problem. I mean, all I know is I watch it and it's clearly not working. 5 games in, I don't know what their identity, I don't know what they're trying to do. You know, pick something that you think you go well and do it. And just, you know, at this point, you know, you got 12 games to go. Are you just going to write off the season or are you going to get things fixed? You know, we keep hearing from Kevin every week, I'm going to get it fixed. It's time to put up or shut up.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Louis Riddick, former front office executive in the NFL, guy that played for the Browns. On the Deshaun Watson trade and how it's being perceived.
Watson just doesn't play well. It's like he's vacant when he's out there.
That's it.
He's checked out.
This is like Tua. I mean, I get it. I get the risk, you know, that they were taken down there in Miami, given his medical history. But it's everything that came with Deshaun that they knew of before they even signed him. And now on top of it, like the crap play that he's putting out there right now is just like the icing on the whole crap cake. It's just awful. The whole thing is awful. And I'm telling you, like it's one of those situations where you sit, and I feel so bad for Cleveland because honestly, in my career, I mean, that's the place I identify with the most because it's where I was the longest and where really I learned football. Like I believe I know it right now. And to see them now, they're a very talented football team that now is becoming again one of those, you know, one of those franchises where you're just sitting there going, yeah, that's the Browns.
But are they going to be sellers? Like,
I don't know what can you do?
Yeah, and again, Fred, I don't know about sellers, but you got to find a way to get the offense going, and I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, you got to have hope, and you like you talked about, if you could see, I don't think if you went to Winston that it means it's forever. You know, you can always go back, but I just don't know if that's the answer. There's just so many components to this, and that's where I just feel like he talked about, you know, they have I feel like the most talented roster that I have covered, you know, and even national reporters all offseason said the Browns had a top 3, top 5 roster. We talked about it on this show, but what was holding them back was the quarterback, and they all had him ranked, you know, at the bottom 5. And I really thought that was just for their disdain. It's hard for me to believe that they knew he wasn't going to play well, but there's clearly a problem. And, you know, I go back, that's why the Browns were willing to, they didn't want to go through all this garbage that they've went through off the field, but they were so desperate to get elite quarterback. You know, they clearly felt like they needed to move on from Baker Mayfield, and that's the only semblance that you've had since Bernie Kosar was here. I mean, everybody else, 38 different quarterbacks been through here. And so you go right back to starting over and hoping you can find somebody in the draft. And yeah, it's easy to see Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, and how they immediately turned their team around. But those guys weren't even the first pick in the draft. So somebody in the front offices didn't think they were that good. So that's the problem. You kind of go back into that roller coaster again, hoping to find a quarterback. And I don't know, with the albatross of the contract around their neck, they can put him on the bench and seek to find a new quarterback. But I don't know if it's a sure shot that you're going to find the answer.
All right, before I let you go, what are some immediate steps that can get them a win? What do you do to get a win?
Well, it would help if the defense would play lead. I know that's a lot of pressure on them. They're ranked 12th. Last year, they're ranked 1st. They're giving up like 24 points a game. That's not good enough. I mean, you got to get under 20. That's what I'm most concerned with, the points. They're 23rd. The Browns offense is struggling. If they would have only scored 22 points, though, they would have won 2 more games. So that's not even that great. So until the offense can get some points, the defense is going to almost have to be, in the 13 to 16 point range a game. And the offense, like I've said, I don't get paid to figure this stuff out. That's what all these 25, 30 coaches they have on the staff that are there 20 hours a day should be doing. But I would simply simplify things and even look at some of the things, maybe not all of it wholesale, but some of the things you did last year that were successful, especially with Nick Chubb coming back in the next couple games, and to get something going before you get in, when you get into the AFC North. And the one thing that I'd say, 1-4 isn't good for stats to make the playoffs, but they haven't started division play. And at 1-4, you're only 2 games behind the division leader, and you get to play those guys each twice. So if you can pivot, turn things around, and I'm not saying blow it up, pivot on what you do well and implement it. So I don't know exactly, other than simplify and do some concepts you did in the past that were successful.
Fred Greetham, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
All right, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Fred Greetham, Senior Analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Make sure you check him out. Always good and insightful Brown stuff. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.